Everyone, welcome. The time is upon us. We are on spring game eve. The Florida State Seminoles will play the Florida State Seminoles in the culmination
We need
of
this.
spring football, the biggest. It's the one to rule them all on Saturday, 4 p.m. FSU is going to play FSU. And I think what we wanted to do in lieu of a true preview, I think the guys at Noles 247, they've been out at practice every single day. Kevin's been to a number of practices. Adam and I have not. So they're probably going to give you what to expect from like who's been doing what type of perspective. I want to give you a different perspective. As you're watching the game, it's basically a guide of how to watch a spring game. What matters, what doesn't, what personally we're going to be looking for. So hopefully we can tamper down some of those overreactions and tap into the things that are really going to be relevant for the 2023 football season. We did this last year. I thought it went over well, and I thought some of our observations teaser were pretty good. Guys, how are you doing? Are you excited? Our little how to watch the 2023 FSU spring game, it's upon us. Go ahead. You first.
Go, Kev.
All right,
Talk.
I'm excited.
Yeah,
this is the only football we get. We talk so much recruiting in the off season. My jam is watching football, and I'm excited to watch some football. I'm excited to watch the Garnet and Gold play the Garnet, and probably the Gold and White probably, but it's always a good time to see more football.
Colors aside, and we're gonna have it covered like a regular game. We've got our preview. I think we're gonna do an instant reaction. We're gonna break down the film. You're gonna get it. We're gonna squeeze every little last drop out of this football lemon that we can. What about you, big man? How do you feel about spring games? You're a coach. Hate them? Like them? I figured he'd say that.
No, they're okay. I mean, they're cool. Look, it's a culmination to 3 tough weeks. I don't think anybody looks forward to spring except for coaches, and even they. Depends on who you ask about how much they look forward to them. It's an opportunity to get a lot of good work in. So it's a great chance to get some of your depth, a lot of reps in front of a crowd, guys who maybe haven't stepped foot out on that field. Jeremiah Byers, for example, coming up from UTEP, it's a chance to get out there and get him some bullets, get Bless Harris back in some kind of game flow to see where he's at as he continues to work himself back from an injury last year. So it's a great opportunity to get guys work in a controlled environment. For those of you that have watched Florida tonight in their spring game, they look like absolute dog meat. Don't run to Twitter right away and say, "Oh, they look," because I guarantee you, there's going to be times in the spring game on Saturday that Florida State looks like dog meat too. It's just kind of what spring games are. So I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait to see the Charlie Ward versus Carlos Williams chalk. Who gets the chalk last and gets that coaching matchup.
I appreciate you trying to get yourself fired up on it. It's a yeoman's effort, but I think you're failing. I'm excited about it. And for you guys who didn't watch last year, there was some elements of traditional scrimmage. There was also like a lot of situational drills, goal line drills, things like that. So it's not just going to be 4 quarters of a straight game, FSU versus FSU. But anyway, before we kind of break down on what you guys need to watch, and of course, for all this coverage, subscribe to the Noles 24/7 YouTube channel that you're watching this on right now. Turn the notifications on. The X's and Noles YouTube channel as well. We have our in-depth film breakdown. Subscribe to that. If you're not a part of Noles 24/7, do it now, guys. It's recruiting season, and they're the best. We're the best. Everyone's the best. Get on the board. Anyway, Kevin, what has been your thoughts so far? You've been down there. What's your thoughts so far on how the spring has gone before we break down how and what to watch in the game?
The spring looks solid. I mean, every year so far, every year you've come in and you've seen just physical changes, first of all. So that's that's the first thing that stands out. The players look different. The body composition has seriously changed for a lot of these players, and you'll see that on Saturday. The big movers are, Steven Dix continued to lose weight. AJ Duffy looks like a different kid physically. Shaheem Brown kind of toned up a little bit, looks solid. And like those are just a few that off the top of my head, but the whole roster looks more like what their ideal is to look like. So that's going to stand out immediately when you see these kids. But I think really just the level of competition has gone up. I mean, last year you could see the ones across the board were really competitive and really good, but this year it's the ones and the twos that both look like they could be starting Power 5, very solid teams. And it's just
right.
Not only is the top end improving, but you see more and more depth, and I think that's going to be very apparent on Saturday.
Yeah, it'll be a fun watch because, like you said, having better depth is probably going to lead to a more competitive spring game. So we'll see a lot of these guys that fans have only read about in practice reports, like guys like Byron Turner, KJ Kirkland, seeing some of those guys in action in Doak. It'll be fun. Adam, what about you? Any like particular reports that really stuck out to you, either positive or negative? What's your thoughts so far? Successful spring for a team that's got championship aspirations?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I've got a wooden tray table right here in front of me that I'm knocking on right now.
Yeah, you shook your camera.
I did. And everybody's going to thank me on Saturday if nobody gets hurt, because that ultimately is what your greatest takeaway for springs are. Did you get through spring without anybody getting a serious injury? Namely your quarterback, your potential All-American quarterback, Jordan Travis. I mean, that's a guy you wanted to keep healthy. They've been able to do so. It sounds like he's had a really good spring. And then after, once I move on from that, it's the trenches. I mean, I've talked to enough people around the program that are just, I don't want to say giddy, but they're pretty excited about the competition they've been able to foster in the trenches between the offensive line and defensive line and in those rooms themselves. So I'm excited to observe that play itself out for however long it does on Saturday. We'll see what the starting groups are going to look like. I don't know if they're going to mix the teams up or not. Brendan and Chris and Zach and Dane will have all that information, but I'm curious to see what the lines look like. Do they do like a ones versus two? Do they mix the teams up and do kind of an inter squad type of deal? Either way, I'm pretty excited to see Casey Roddick against Daryl Jackson, Bless Harris against Jared Verse, Pat Payton against Julian Armello. Like, those are battles that we can look forward to now, and that's exciting for me.
Yeah, I like that too. And there's been a lot of reports so far of Alex Atkins kind of challenging the offensive line, throwing a lot of different combinations out at them to kind of test how they are against adversity. Well, I'm going to be interested to see if there's a lot of that in the spring game, or will that first group that goes out, will that kind of be looking like the first group that might take the field against LSU? It'll be interesting just to see how the coaches manage, how they run that spring game. Kevin, before we start getting into how you evaluate the spring game, a storyline that has stuck out in your head? We talked a lot during our pre-spring roundtable about storylines that you were looking for. What was your storyline of the spring?
I think the storyline with this team is always kind of be, what are you going to get out of these transfers, right? As long as that's been Mike Norvell's been here, that's been the question, right? So to me, I'm going to be specifically watching some players. I think you watch Daryl Jackson. How does he look against other, Power 5? How does he look on Florida State's roster? How does Gilbert Edmond look next to Jared Verse? And how do these guys integrate themselves? And to me, I think the big story that kind of popped up has just been KJ Kirkland and Quindarius Jones. I think they've kind of
your guys. I knew you'd get that reference in there. I hate the Kirkland one for you. I knew you'd get your other guy in. Go ahead.
The thing is, it's I say Kirkland and Jones. It's Jones. Jones looks really good.
He's your guy.
And
okay.
He was my guy coming in, but he's kind of outpaced that. So I'm going to be watching for him. I hope that he kind of like lives up to kind of how I've been, amping him up. But we're going to look at the secondary. There's a big question that like nickel Noles is out this spring. So who steps up? Greedy Vance has looked really good, but they've shuffled a lot of people into that position. So kind of getting to see like really break down, have film that we can watch and rewatch of who kind of steps up in those positions. If any of these newcomers are really, ready to contribute day one. Those are kind of my big ideas.
Yeah, and I like that too, because last year it was how the newcomers integrated. How do all those new receivers integrate? This year it's going to be how do all those new interior offensive linemen integrate, especially with Dimitri Emmanuel coming back. That's another guy back from last year's roster. Like, who is going to take the spots, who's not? And then the tight end room completely flipped. I really want to see Jaheim Bell out there and Kyle Morlock and just see Florida State's offense was so productive last year when they got so little statistically from the tight end position, flashes better near the end. Man, with that being a consistent unit that you can count on, specifically on like third downs, it unlocks the middle of the field. Adam, what about you? Storyline that stood out to you?
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to get any storyline answers in the spring game.
That's a fair answer. Yeah, this useless spring game that you hate so much.
So much of our focus has been on schematic stuff. How are they going to handle the nickel position?
Good call. Yeah,
is the defense going to be more diverse? They're not going to show that really in the spring game. It's going to be very vanilla schematically. They're not going to be out there running a 3-man front, a 5-man front, and rolling these defensive line packages in and out. That's just not what you do in the spring. You keep it very vanilla. So we're going to see a lot of cover 4, cover 2, that kind of stuff. Some man. It's just what we're going to see from the secondary. So I don't know if we're going to get the answers that we are hoping to get. But as far as players, yeah, Darrell Jackson had a hell of a start to practice, and then kind of tapered off a little bit. I know Brendan was critical, or had heard some critical talk of his play in some of the scrimmages. How's he handle the spring game? Does he come out and kick ass, or does he, not respond? That's a guy we've heaped a lot of praise on. Obviously, we compared the kid to Chris Jones in college, so we're very high on his game. Does he go out and make us look smart on Saturday? We're going to find out. I don't, like you mentioned, Jaheim Bell.
Help I could get, yeah.
Are they gonna really unleash the Jaheim Bell package? I don't
know. Not so much, but just seeing him out there integrated with the offense. I'm with you. That's a good. It's different. Past years we talked about, does FSU have the talent?
Right.
Now we're pretty confident they have the talent. I think the more intriguing stuff is how it's going to be used. I don't think we're going to get a lot of answers to that on Saturday.
What I'm most excited about is seeing player 30 through 85. That's what I'm most excited about, because these a lot of guys that you don't see written up every day about. You don't hear about. There maybe some of them are unheralded. Kevin mentioned Stephen Dix. DeMarco Ward's a name that Brendan's been writing about quite a bit recently. I'm excited to see DeMarco Ward. Like, it's not a big time name. It's not a fancy name. He's a true freshman who came in during the bowl season, known as a Randy Special, but we were really thrilled with what we saw from his senior tape.
It got better,
a guy that could potentially be a 4th or a 5th linebacker for you this year, as some depth. Those are the things I'm anxious to see.
Yeah. Do you have quality depth, championship depth, or do you have like jag depth? Like just a guy, like, tackling cones. So we're going to see that. And it's also going to give you a nice glimpse into the future, the guys that you are going to have to count on a couple years down the road from now. So Adam, as a coach, how do you evaluate a spring game? How indicative are they, like the correlation between a good spring game to a good season as a coach?
I don't think they look. You treat them just like practice. I mean, you're going to watch the tape and you're going to evaluate each guy. And they handle spring games like practices. I mean, God, last year everybody was up in arms because they started with 2-point drills to start the spring
line
game. Yeah. You just evaluate every player like you would in a game, like you would in a practice. So it's just another opportunity to get film on guys and to evaluate them in situations, find out how they're processing information. It's been a crazy install this year. We were talking a little bit before we got started, and Kev was like, look, I mean, it's just install crazy. And that's not necessarily what you see in a lot of springs, but this is such a veteran-laden team that they've been able to do that. This is a good chance to get Brock Glenn film. See where he's at, continue to evaluate his process. AJ Duffy, that's a hell of a battle there that they're trying to figure out, going forward. You're just getting more tape of them. So it's valuable in that aspect that you're getting tape, you're able to turn the tape on and break it down.
Yeah, that's a good point. They're way further ahead this spring than they have been
Mm-hmm.
in any other end. That's always good. That's always good to be deeper into the playbook than you expect to be. Kevin, what are you watching for this spring game? Are you watching players? Is there a position that maybe lends itself better to spring game evaluation? Are you looking at units? Are you looking at individuals? How do you, as the learned film guy, as per your little nickname, self-given, how are you, film guy? How are you going to watch this spring game? Tell the people give them a hint on how they maybe should.
Well, before I get too far into that, I do want to kind of address what you just asked, AB. We left last year's spring game. Most people left last year's spring game down on Florida State as a whole.
Yeah, good call. Good call.
So like that tells you how much you can tell about quality of team from spring game. Most people's indication was FSU was bad. That didn't end up being true. And I think ultimately you want to be kind of wary about any position group that has a very low sample size. So specifically that can look like defensive back or quarterback, or even wide receiver in some cases. Like these quarterbacks are going to get 2-3 drives. It could depend on who they're throwing the ball to or who they're throwing the ball against. Like one pick on one of those 3 drives doesn't necessarily mean that they're a bad quarterback or that they're terrible. If I remember correctly, in the spring game last year, Tate Rodemaker threw an interception to Sam McCall in the goal line drills. So one of those ended up having a decent season and the other one transferred to Texas A&M. So like don't take these like small samples and run with them. I think you'll get more out of watching, and we're going to do this. We're really going to kind of break down this spring game because it's going to be the only film we get for a while. But like watching the offensive and defensive lines, you'll get more reps out of them. You'll see them competing on every play. Watching the corners when they're off ball specifically, how do they stick on receivers? How are receivers blocking? How are they, what do their routes look like? You can see these intangible things that happen every play, but I wouldn't get too wrapped up in, oh, did this running back get a broken run? Oh, did he throw a touchdown? Oh, did he throw an interception? You got to kind of find the few places where you can find decent sample sizes.
And you have to have a more critical eye because individual performances are important. But what's important in context is who's blocking for that running back that sprang the run? Who is the linebacker whose tackle he ran through? Just be cognizant of like who's the offensive line combination. Be cognizant of all them. I don't think you should make any sweeping generalizations at all. But if you want to, be cognizant of who is on the field at that time. Another thing too that I think, Adam, you could probably attest to this. There's some degree, in my opinion, I could be wrong, of if anybody's played football, a practice hero, right? A guy who kills it in practice because he's the familiarity. They know the routes. They know the play. They know the tendencies of the specific player because they've been lining up against them all spring. They know how they run their inside, their outside moves, things like that. So there are some guys that I think on that Sam McCall interception, I think he knew the exact play where it's not that environment in a game where it's unknown against unknown. So be wary of that too before you want to crown anybody the king of the spring. I can't wait to see Brendan's like updated rankings. That has become like a thing that makes me very happy. Adam,
I know.
It's really fun. Oh, do you? Okay, well, don't say anything. Yeah, we need the clicks, baby. Adam, do you agree with what Kevin said? I mean, is there something like, are you going to be looking groups, individuals? I mean, how are you going to be watching this game to try to glean everything you can from it from an analytical perspective?
I'm just taking every player as an individual. I'm not going to try to look at schematical stuff. I'm not going to try to figure those things out. Like I'm going to watch each rep of whatever player I'm watching on that rep. How did they do? How did they handle that situation? And just going to go from there. I agree with you that a lot of these times, these guys have seen these plays 150 times throughout spring practice, and they know what's coming. That was the best Sam McCall looked as a Florida State Seminole in that game last year. Like, I think that speaks a lot of volumes for what these spring games can be. I'm anxious to see AZ McCall, or I'm sorry, AZ Thomas. God, sorry, Azaria.
Jammed them together like Voltron. Yeah.
I feel terrible for doing that. Yeah, that's a player whose name's been really quiet. Like, it'll be good to just evaluate his play. How's his back pedal? How are his zone turns? How are all that stuff?
Right? Technique
Yeah.
stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep. How's his technique? What's it look like? Is it clean? Does he seem to understand what's going on, or does he look lost? I mean, you can get a sense of those things that if you're looking for something schematically. Is he out of place? If he's out of place, well, it kind of signals a problem. But as far as watching individual players, you just, does it look right or does it look wrong?
Yeah. Anything that you guys want to see that would give you the warm and fuzzies, or maybe give you like a pang of panic? Like what, Kevin, what's something that if it happened on Saturday, you would be really, really happy with, even with knowing all the caveats that we've already told you guys about watching spring games and what they mean ultimately?
I think I'd like to see Jones, Quindarius Jones have a good play.
That's selfish. That's for you. Okay, I get you.
But no, I think maybe having Rodney Hill having a big breakout run or something. I think he's worked hard. I think he's kind of deserved a little bit of the notoriety. He's living behind Trey Benson and Trayshawn Ward last year and didn't really get much reps, but there's a lot there, and I think he's going to really have a breakout year this year. And the same with some of the wide receivers. So they're probably gonna be a little bit light with who they throw out there, just kind of keeping guys fresh. It's not necessarily I don't think they see the spring game as a big deal. So you'll be able to see some wide receivers, some young guys like All Day Dre and
Hakeem Williams. Yeah,
you'll get to see some Hakeem Williams, and you'll get to see how they kind of interact. I hope that they kind of have good days. They can kind of build their confidence with the fan base, because I think they're the future at that position. And once you kind of lose Johnny Wilson, you're going to have to replace him with some playmakers. And I think just seeing them kind of build some confidence on more of a national stage would be really big.
I like that. What about you, Adam? Something you'd really like to see that would make you feel good?
I want to first, Brendan O'Hara asked about the gaming stream. I believe it's on ACC Network Extra, so that's like through ESPN Plus.
Yeah. Sorry, guys, sign up for that.
Oh, it's going to be horrible. It's going to be absolutely horrible. Florida State football. Braden Fisk I don't expect him to play. I think he's going to be green through spring, but I don't know if Mike Norvell's absolutely spoken on that, so I don't want to.
We don't know. That's our guess.
Yeah. I'm excited to watch the young wide receivers, specifically Hakeem Williams. Does it look like he's ready to take a step and be a playmaker for them this year? That's something that would be important. A lot of people have written about the wide receiver depth being a little bit of a concern right now. So that would obviously be. I don't know. It's early. Okay. There's a lot of dudes out there in the portal that if they needed to go get a wide receiver, they felt like it was a problem, they could go get one. So Is it a concern? No, I think they're going to be okay there. I think you've got enough weapons in a Jaheim Bell, and a Kyle Morlock, a Biscuit, a Rodney Hill, a Lawrence Toafili.
Ja'Kai Douglas.
You can move guys around. You can move guys around and get into personnel packages to make you feel comfortable. So it's not something I'm worried about, but I think it's worth monitoring anyway, at least being on the radar as we move into portal season part 2, that maybe they decide they need to go get somebody. As far as who else am I watching, I want to watch Byron Turner. I want to see if he's ready to step into
that's a big one,
into a role, especially with Derek McClendon moving on. I'm fairly confident, obviously, in Jared Verse, Pat Payton, and Gilbert Edmond. I've heard good things about Edmond and where he's kind of going to be in that room. But I want to see if Byron Turner is ready to step in and play. You don't want to need to use Braden Fisk outside if you don't want to have to count on that.
Right.
That you want that to be a luxury. You want Dennis Briggs to be a luxury that you can use out there when you want to. You don't want to be forced into that. And God only knows what the defensive end market will look like on the transfer portal in post spring. So you want Byron Turner to step in and show you that he's ready to be a contributor like Pat Payton did last year when he got his shot. So what young wide receiver, Byron Turner, those are the two areas I'm most looking forward to watching and seeing some progress out of.
All right. Well, and guys, once that game is over, we are going to give a kind of our observations, what we're going to try to glean from next year. But in the for the sake of transparency, we like to bear it all for you guys on a SFW channel as much as we can with our observations. Kevin, do you want to go over what we saw from last year's spring game and just maybe kind of assess the accuracy? I think you have those written down, don't you?
Yeah, and before we get too far, I did want to just bring this up to AB since there's a comment in the show. I think this is good. How many different offensive line combos do you think we see? I kind of want to take that and maybe we can just open up the offensive line conversation in general a little bit, because I think there's about 8 to 10 guys that you're hoping can contribute for you, and we might not be able to see them all throughout the season. So this would be a pretty good way. This is a pretty good way to kind of get an idea of what you have, right?
Yeah, I mean, you've got, all right, so help me here as I try to list them off the top of my head. I don't think Robert Scott will be participating in the game, but I don't want to say that confidently, and I don't want to get anybody in trouble. So you got Bless Harris, you've got Jeremiah Byers, Casey Roddick, Mo Smith, you've got Big Meech, who just got the waiver cleared.
Yep.
You've got Keandre Jones, Julian Armella, Jalen Early. Who else am I missing?
What about like Schrader and Herring and
Thomas
Bryson
Schrader,
Estes,
Zane Herring,
Bryson Estes, Lucas Simmons,
Estes,
Kanai Charlton,
Kanai Charlton, Quayshawn Sapp. I mean, Jesus, they've got
I thought that was pretty good. Yeah,
they got a lot of bodies in there, and as far as combinations, I mean, who knows? Alex Atkins is going to throw a lot at those dudes. I mean, he's going to be moving guys around. You're probably going to see some guys play center that have never played center, that have never played center at Florida State in an actual game.
In front of your eyes, yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't shock me to see them throw a guy in there just to see what the hell he's got. You know, I mean, I forgot Darius Washington. Darius Washington, obviously.
D-Wash.
Had a good spring.
Sorry, Darius.
Sure.
So I think you're going to see umpteen combinations, and I'm excited to evaluate them. I'm excited to see what they look like come Monday or Tuesday when we break that down.
Absolutely.
And no matter who they're going against, they're going against a solid players on the other side. So you'll get to see all of those guys against legitimate starter quality on the defensive line.
Do I think Meech is locked in at guard? He's at guard. Do I think he's locked in as a starter? I don't think anybody's locked in as a starter up there.
Me neither. Stay on your toes. That's good, though. That's good. Yeah. Competition. Everybody gets better.
Yeah,
Fifth year all ACC guard we're talking about potentially not having a spot locked down.
Wild. Kevin, any other good questions before we get to our little ombudsman report?
There was one posted on the board, on the Noles 24/7 message board. If you're not a subscriber, get over there and get subscribed.
Come on.
I'll ask it here, and we'll see where it takes us. So, for you guys, maybe this was asked by Danny Cronin 7. For you guys, maybe specifically Kev, what are maybe one or two aspects you think will pop out immediately on the TV for all of us that would be watching the spring game on TV? These don't necessarily have to be super intricate details, but maybe obvious, clear differences on screen that us viewers will notice who haven't seen this team since the bowl game.
Yeah, I think you're going to notice like I said earlier, the difference in how some of these guys are built. I said it when Johnny Wilson stepped on the field last spring. He walked on, and you noticed, well, that's an NFL guy. He's built differently than the rest of the guys on this field. And you guys all saw that come spring game and come fall. He was just built differently. And I think the same thing you can say about Darrell Jackson. I think he still has things to work through, but he's just built differently. He's 6'6", trim, yet 260 pounds, and has shoulders wider than anybody else on the team. You know, I think that Byers' athleticism kind of stands out. I think that a lot of these guys, builds and who they are kind of stands out. I think you'll see people haven't talked about Morlock, and I think that there's reason for that. I think there's still some growing pains that he's going to have to go through to make it like transition to this level, but he is very athletic for someone who's built like a tight end. And so you'll see kind of these little things, these little ways that the floor, or not the floor, the athletic ceiling is being raised by these newcomers. And I think that's going to be the first thing people notice.
All right. I've actually got those observations from last year in front of me. So I'm going to go over
Yeah,
them.
you
And
go for it.
And then maybe we can do like thumbs up or thumbs down. So the first thing that we said, spring says more about individuals than teams. I think we kind of did. I mean, that's what we talked about here. I think that was just we kind of couched our observations. We said everybody kind of look past performance and look at the physicality. That's because last year we had a whole bunch of guys transfer in and we wanted to see if they look the part. They did. They did look the part. Maybe not so much in spring, but they definitely looked the part for those 10 wins. We talked about value of transfers. We thought Benson was a hit that was very undervalued because of that injury.
We were the only ones.
Yeah, we basically were.
Yeah, good for us. We felt good about that take. Now, Benson did take a little bit of time to get going as the season went on, but yeah, dude, a home run. We thought they were better across their fronts.
Yeah, we were specifically high on Bless Harris too. He was a guy
who was going to be a starter before the injury.
He was another guy. And
I'd say, what do we think? Thumbs in the middle, thumbs up. They were better. Yeah,
they were better last year than the year before. They could
until they started fighting some injuries. I mean, it is what it is.
Okay, so we're doing good so far. More good than bad. We thought it was promising. Now, just also for reference, I think everybody on this podcast predicted like a 7-win season, right?
Yes.
We thought that was better.
Promising. So I'd still say yes, but it's not like nobody pulled like a 9-win regular season.
The big wrath over the spring game last year was how ugly the damn thing was.
Yeah, they were like, we're going to win 30 games.
On the actual football, and people just couldn't get past it.
Yeah, I know. I remember being positive. Everybody's like, what are you talking about? I was like, guys, it's there. Just shine it up, man. It's all good. We said the wide receivers, they can't get off the press. I mean, Johnny Wilson. What do you think about that? I mean, Johnny Wilson was pretty. I'd say we're wrong too.
They didn't struggle. Yeah, they didn't struggle with a lot of press coverage last year, but I don't remember how much they got pressed over the course of the year. But no, I would say that's a miss.
I'd say that's a miss too. Kevin, you agree? The wide receivers played better last. I mean, going from the worst unit in the entire country to how they performed last year, like we missed on that one. The wide receivers were pretty solid.
We were. I think we were still a little bit just wary to suggest that they would make that big of an improvement.
Non-existent tight end play.
No, we're spot on.
Yeah, we correct. Sorry.
No, shout out to Biscuit, who was a nice surprise.
He grew throughout the season, but he was another one of those where it's like he didn't show up for the beginning.
Weeks on end, he was nowhere to be found.
It took some time to gel, but no, there were so many. There were multiple instances that I'm sure are flashing through everybody's heads of drop balls and guys getting blown up and blocking assignments.
Hold on, Trey, before you continue. Thoughts on the kickers?
That's a perfect question for AB.
They should remove them from football. I mean,
oh wow, a little Brian Kelly action executed. They should be executed.
I mean, look, it sounds like Kev's been there and Brendan has talked about it quite a bit. I'm not going to worry about kicker. I don't think Mike's going to let that cost him an opportunity at a really good season.
All right. Better than they were leaving last season. Thumbs up. Another one. We were positive. We said the defensive line was going to be the strongest position group. Who do you think? Quarterback. I mean, right? I mean,
but not only that, but you immediately lose Fabian Lovett in the LSU game. Robert Cooper plays hurt all year. Jarrett Jackson plays hurt all year. Dennis Briggs is not himself. Like, they battled a bunch of injuries in that group that really hampered, I think, what their ceiling was, what they could have been. And really, as we've talked about a lot this offseason, the defensive line cost you a lot of opportunities throughout the rest of the defense. And I don't want to say it was the Achilles heel, but it made this defense look a lot. Yeah, it did. It hamstrung what they could do because they were so limited up front with the bodies that they had on the interior.
And even our assumption with these observations, everybody's healthy. Even with being a fully healthy defensive line, I don't think they were the best position group. I'd give it to running backs. There are others for sure. Yeah. So, miss. Minor steps up across the board. Every group improved, but there were some that really improved. So I'm going to say on us too. The way quarterbacks and receivers and stuff like that.
Well, here's the question. I have a question, because I think when we said that, one of the big we had was defensive end. So just as a question, would you take last year's Patrick Payton and Jared versus the year before?
Oh, I take
Keir
Kieran
Thomas.
Jermaine.
Yeah, me too.
So we're probably wrong about defensive ends.
This year, I'll be curious if we will take Jared and Gilbert or Jared and Patrick.
And Patrick Payton's going to be
over
good.
last year. What'd you say?
I said Patrick Payton's going to be good. He's going to be a good football player.
I think the ceiling of the group this year versus the Jermaine, I don't know, man. The Jermaine Keir group's tough because you're talking about a first-round pick and you're talking about another guy who's playing in the NFL right now who was solid against the run. It was a really nice, like, synergistic combination. I really would have liked to see them surrounded by better talent. I don't know, but we were wrong about that because Keir, you'd take Keir and Jermaine all day over last year. But yeah, I mean, they got better. I mean, obviously, we predicted 7-win seasons. We undersold how much better they would be. And then this one, I think, bang, 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 Cactus Jack style. We got this one right. The transfers are standing out, and the coaching evaluation process was good on the transfers. Mr. Bang Bang says all day, nailed it.
Yeah.
Their hit rate on transfers are just unreal. And
their hit rate in general is just unreal. Look at Quindarius Jones and KJ Kirkland. I mean, those are two guys. Kirkland was a 4-star, but Quindarius Jones was a guy that nobody even thought existed. And now he's getting praise in a room that's got some pretty good talent in it already. Like, I think these guys can turn the film on and know what the hell a football player looks like.
Yep. So that goes to show you guys that it's not the be-all, end-all, but there is some valuable stuff that you can pull. I think the thing that you can't pull is the degree of those like observations you're going to see on Saturday, like, because guys are going to get better in the fall as well, especially with the newer guys with familiarity with the offense. But keep your eyes open on Saturday. We did pretty good, and you guys are smarter than us, so you'll do pretty good too. Anything else, guys, before we wrap this up into a little bow and get ready for Saturday? Anything else?
Spring games. Go ahead, Kev.
I kind of want to open up this conversation just really quickly.
Okay.
Because I keep thinking of the defensive line. I feel like for the past few years, we've said we think the defensive line is going to be the strongest position group on the team preseason. And I think a lot of us would probably say that this season. Why hasn't it been? And is there reason to question that it might be this year?
Do you want to take that, Adam, or would you like me to take a stab and you can clean up my answer?
Take a stab. But the people want to hear from Trey.
All right. Listen, obviously a lot of that defensive line was overvalued because the offensive line was just that poor, particularly the 2021 season and even a little bit last year. This is different because you've got guys that are coming back that have a track record of production at D1 at Florida State. Jared Verse, Patrick Payton, Fabian Lovett, all those guys, Dennis Briggs. Then you bring in some other guys who have a pretty proven track record of production at other schools, Braden Fisk, Darrell Jackson, and they're looking good in practice against guys that have a proven track record. You know, the Mo Smiths, Casey Roddicks, Jeremiah Byers, all those guys that have played for Florida State before. So it's not so much they're dominating against either schlubs or unknowns. We have a better idea because we've seen it with our eyes. It's not so much projection. So this year, I don't know if I want to say it again. If you take quarterback out of the mix, I think Jordan Travis is the best guy on the team. The team's going to go still like to the aspirations that they want to go. Jordan's going to be the main driver of that. But outside of that, especially with the interior of that defensive line, they're looking pretty good. What about you, Adam?
I think when you make predictions on things, it's tough to take into account injuries because you don't know what injuries are going to occur. You know they're going to happen, but you never know the severity. You don't know how many they're going to be. They were riddled with them last year. I do still think the offensive line's a little overvalued for what they actually are. it wasn't a great offensive line last year. It was just an average one. So when we see the defensive line beat up on them in spring games and whatnot, I think it gives us a bit of an over sense of confidence in what that group can be. But I do think that they've raised the ceiling for what the offensive line is this year with some of the additions and just some of the growth of some of the younger guys. So I think we're going to get a better taste or sense of what that group actually is this year when they compete against the Florida State offensive line. So
yeah,
not being able to take into account the severities and the numbers of injuries you're going to have, I think sets you up for failure when a bunch of them occur in one position group like they did last year at D tackle. And how do you compare? I mean, how do you rank positions? So we're talking about this year. The immediate thought was for last year, the best position group was quarterback because of Jordan Travis. But I mean, how do you?
I don't know about last year because
I think that some people would say that because Jordan Travis is your best player, that immediately that's probably your best position group.
Yeah,
there's only 3 of them. I mean, how the hell? It's tough to. I don't know. That's tough for me to evaluate and say, well, this is your best position group. Some people would say running back. I mean, Trey was really good. Trayshawn Ward was really good. But then after that, what? Lawrence Toafili wasn't really a huge factor. Rodney Hill only played in 4 games.
I get what you mean.
Was a nice story in mop-up duty.
I'm with you, Adam, because like you said, it's like the quarterback. Like I don't know if people would have said last year Jordan Travis was like if quarterback was going to be their best position going into 2022. We had a vehement argument if he was top 25. We said yes, and people are really pissed about it. So I don't know about that, but I'm with you. It is tough to. People like to rank them. We try to rank them.
Yeah.
But there's such a difference between a position group where it's one guy versus one, where it's defensive line, where it's 4 guys on the field at once and they rotate the crap out of them, right, to keep them fresh. So keep that in mind. But who do you think is going to be the best position group now, though? I mean, take quarterback out of it.
I think it's defensive tackle. I mean,
it's a defensive line. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if Darrell Jackson is what we think he's going to be, and Braden Fisk is what we think he's going to be, I just have a hard time seeing it not being them. We know Fabian Love is a stud and is a game changer. Ayo Tafasi sounds like he is becoming an absolute monster in there in spurts. Daniel Lyons is a player that I know I'm very high on, and I know Brendan is also. And those guys are like your 5th and 6th option. So that's what's really crazy. I'm curious. I'm really excited to see it all play out.
Well, we're going to get a little.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat here. I wanted Kev's opinion on this. Chris asked if we had two scholarships open for the portal, what 2 positions would you look to use it on?
Yeah, I was thinking about that when I saw it in the chat. I think my answer might be similar to yours. I think I would take 1 defensive end, and I think I'd take 1 safety. I think I would too. Yeah, I think that Duke Cooper's looked good back at safety, but I mean, you almost lost the Florida game because you didn't have you ran out of safeties. You were putting linebackers at safety, and now you've lost Jamie Robinson, and your answer was to replace him with Duke Cooper. I still have questions about the safety because after that, it's Kenton Kirkland, who's a true freshman, and Hussey, who's coming in, Conrad Hussey, who's coming in as a true freshman.
You got Akeem, but he's coming. He's working off something,
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of question marks for me at that safety position. I would definitely take a safety and probably a defensive end.
All right. So we were talking before, and it's come up about wide receiver. Where do you think they're lacking at wide receiver right now when you watch them practice?
Well, there's just been a lot of. It's hard to. I don't know how to answer this. There's just been a lot of wide receivers that just have not practiced for some amount of time.
Okay, so
it's hard to evaluate what they're missing.
Yeah, it's hard to evaluate what's happened in practice.
Hasn't got enough work.
I feel a variety of reasons. Okay, so is wide receiver potentially a bigger issue than safety?
I have no reason to believe that all of the wide receivers won't be back by fall. Like I think nobody's, sitting out or not sitting out at any point in time because there's any sort of serious things going on. I think they're getting rest. So while there might be some like depth concerns, even at this point, you're still practicing with, guys that are good, like
And
good players.
And to your point, Kevin, the known of what that you're getting back that it performed last year at wide receiver, you're so comfortable with. Whereas at safety, even some of the known stuff, there's a lot of unknown, but even some of the known stuff had some warts on it that needs to be, worked out. So I still, even with wide receiver maybe being a smidge more concerning, at least right now, than people thought, I'm with you. I still think safety's the bigger thing.
DN's number one for me, no doubt
about
about
it.
All
about defensive end.
It is where I would spend anything I need to spend to go get another impact defense, because those guys are more.
If you could find one, yeah, for sure.
If you can find one, if one were to become available in the transfer portal in the window that's going to open up here soon, which looks like it might be booming. We'll see.
Yeah, you almost lost Oklahoma because of defensive end depth.
Yeah,
so those two places.
I just don't feel confident in. You've got three guys. I don't want to rely on Byron Turner, even if it looks like he's going to take the next step. I want another Jared Verson there personally, and we'll figure it out. You've pushed the chips all in. Let's go, baby.
All right, well, let's go. Let's go to that spring game on Saturday. We're going to be there with you. Instant reaction, post-reaction, observations, whatever you need. Just make sure you're subscribed to the Noles 24/7 YouTube. Subscribe to the X's and Noles YouTube. Pop those notifications on. And if you're not a member of Noles 24/7, quit being a big fat nerd and subscribe. It's the best info ever. For Adam, the assistant to the traveling O-line coach. For Kevin, film guy, Mick film guy. For Trey, TBD nickname. This was your spring game how to watch preview. We love you, and we will talk to you in a couple days. Keep chopping.
Saturday.